Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. I just completed about maybe an hour ago a program with my comrade, Abraham Weisfeld, Ph.D., who is the guy who runs the Bund organization that I belong to, and I served with him. He is a wonderful man and a scholar, a political scientist. So both of us are social scientists. I wanted to apologize for how I look in in that broadcast. It's better than I looked last week. I don't know why. When I do these solo broadcasts or podcasts, I'm okay. But whenever I'm in a conversation with somebody, I seem to mess up. And I think it's my autism that results in these weird facial expressions. And for some reason, when I'm looking at the camera as I'm speaking, I don't see them. But once the video is completed and it's on YouTube, presto changeo, those weird facial expressions appear. So I apologize for that. Also for my stammering, which I don't do that much in these solo performances, but which I do more in in discussion format. So again, my apologies. I wish I could fix it, but I guess this is me. I will work on it. At least I was better this week than I was last week. And so hopefully next week I will be even better. Now, on to the subject of today's episode. Wanted to talk about the latest mass shooting and then use that as a kind of jumping off point to talk about some other issues related to gun control, guns in general, and how they might be understood from a Marxist perspective, a communist or revolutionary socialist perspective. So I will put on my spectacles, as I oddly call them. Maybe that's a part of my autism too, and read you this article. It is very sad. It is also short, relatively short. It is titled Three Dead, 10 Wounded in Arkansas Grocery Store Shooting, Authorities Say. Dateline, Zoe Scotty and Justin Lear. And this article appeared on the CNN website. Here's the article. 3 people were killed and 10 wounded in a shooting at a grocery store in, and I'm going to guess the pronunciation is Fordyce, Fordyce. I'm just guessing, Arkansas. The Arkansas State Police said in a news conference Friday. The 10 people wounded include the 2 police officers. The suspected shooter was also wounded and taken into custody. Pause. I am happy that he was not killed. I am happy that he was not killed and that he will stand trial and that he will have to testify for what he did. All too often, these people are killed, understandably. I mean, it's not the fault of people who kill them that they're killed. It's the fault of the assailants. But nonetheless, I'm happy that this time the assailant is alive and we will get to hear his testimony in a courtroom. That's what I want to hear. Police first received calls about an active shooter at the Mad Butchery grocery store at around 11:30 a.m. local time. Mike Hager, the Secretary of Public Safety and Director of the Arkansas State Police, said at a news conference. Law enforcement responded immediately and exchanged gunfire with the lone suspect. The injuries to the officers and the suspect are not considered to be life-threatening, according to Hager. He noted that the situation is secured, contained. There are no active threats to the community. That is a quote. Continuing the quote, the remaining civilian injuries range from non-civilian life-threatening to extremely critical. At least 234 shootings have taken place in the United States since 2024, according to data from the Gun Violence Archive, which, like CNN, defines a mass shooting as one in which 4 or more people are shot, excluding the shooter, meaning the shooter is not included in that count. The country has seen a spate of shootings in the past few weeks as the summer has escalated, with 21 shootings recorded by the Gun Violence Archive since last Friday. Pause. Warm weather is one of the best predictors of violent crime for an obvious reason. People are more likely to be out and about. And when they are outside, they are much more easy to be targeted by a gunman or by an assailant or by any kind of person who might wish those people harm, or for whatever reason. I think that sometimes these people really don't know. They're so confused. When you hear their testimonies in court, they don't really make much sense. Sometimes they may be psychotic. Sometimes they're not. I don't know. It's a shame when so many people that have had their lives taken from below them, so many people have had their lives taken away from them for no reason, except for the way in which guns are distributed in the US. But we will get back to that in just a bit. At least 234 mass shootings have taken place in the US in 2024, according to data from the Gun Violence Archive, which, like CNN, defines a mass shooting as one in which 4 or more people are shot, excluding the shooter. The country has seen a spate of shootings in the past few weeks as the summer heat has escalated, with 21 mass shootings recorded by the Gun Violence Archive since last Friday. So tragic. In a statement on X, Twitter, Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who used to work in the Trump administration, said she has been briefed on the tragic shooting in Fordyce and is in constant contact with state police at the scene. One witness, David Rodriguez, told CNN that he was pulling into a gas station when he heard pops, which he thought were fireworks. Shortly after the suspect began firing bullets more rapidly, Rodriguez saw people running from the scene. He then heard sirens and saw ambulances and police arrive at the scene. Rodriguez says the Mad Butchery grocery store's front windows were broken as if they had been shot open by gunfire. Matthew Gill, the meat manager at the Mad Butcher, told CNN a man came into the store with a shotgun that ended up in a shootout with police. As the shooting unfolded, some people hid in a cooler in the grocery store. Fordyce City Council member Roderick Rogers told CNN affiliate KATV he said he was on the phone with someone in the store when the shooting took place. Man, it was bad, Rogers said. The council member said that he had talked to survivors of the shooting who are traumatized. We are trying to get some counseling and everything set up at the moment, he added. Fordyce, a small town in southeast Dallas County, Arkansas, had a population of just 3,396 in 2020. And that is the end of the story. The fact that the population is that small indicates that everyone in that town will have someone that they know, maybe even a relative, who died in that shooting. Everyone. Maybe there are one or two exceptions, but for all intents and purposes, everyone will have someone in that town who was shot that they know. Everyone. And that is so tragic. So tragic. Whenever I read these stories, I never know what to say. It's kind of like, I guess a bit like when presidents, I'm no president, but when presidents have to get before a microphone, a camera, and talk about the aftermath of a mass shooting, they generally do not know what to say. No matter what their political views, they too are traumatized by what happened. Because if you have to be the person to stand before the camera announcing the aftermath of a mass shooting, then you are going to be affected by it as well. It is as if you are a member of the community that you are reporting on. So tragic. So that is the ends of the article, as I said. So let me go into talking about it and my own personal views on mass shootings and gun control, etc. My views are based on myself as a Marxist, although I will admit that my views may be relatively unconventional, and you will see what I mean as I go through it. Marxists, unlike progressives or liberals, are not opposed to people owning guns. I am not a progressive. I am a far leftist. I am a leftist which should be the same as a far leftist, but sadly, in the US, leftist often means progressive. But I am a far leftist, a commie, and so my views on guns are much more open-ended, but they are not exactly the same, I have found, to those of some other communists and Marxists. And here's what I mean. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were certainly not opposed to the ownership of guns. The question is, who did they support owning guns? The answer, revolutionaries. Revolutionaries. Class-conscious revolutionaries. Would they have supported people in MAGA, for example, who are generally not class-conscious? And if they are revolutionary, it is a kind of counter-revolutionary. Would they have supported MAGA people owning guns? I would say most likely not. If so, that would go against every basic principle that is set down in their writings. So my own view is that, yes, gun ownership should be unrestricted, but only for revolutionaries. Only for revolutionaries. And that's it. I would not go beyond that because Marx and Engels did not go beyond that. Anything else is simply stating one's own personal opinion. Now, of course, you can say that what Marx and Engels said was also stating their own personal opinion, but so be it. I am returning in this case directly to Marx and Engels and looking at how they presented the issue of guns and armaments. I once met this person online on the nation states forum, one of the nation states forums. And this person said that he was a member of the NRA, which, if you are not in the United States, is the National Rifle Association, formerly the National Riflemen's Association. They changed their name in an effort to attract women, in case you're wondering why they changed their name. This guy said, yeah, I'm a Marxist, I'm a communist, but I belong to the NRA. And I presented my critique of the NRA to him. And I said, do you realize how many members of the NRA are counter-revolutionary, are opposed to communism in principle, hate communism, despise communism, support capitalism? Why should a communist, why should a Marxist of any tendency, I don't care what tendency, support the right of rednecks? And I'm using a term which rednecks themselves use, in case you did not know that. As a person who lived in the Deep South for 17 years, I knew people who proudly called themselves rednecks. And although I was acquaintances with them, I would not call myself friends of theirs. Why? Because they were all anti-communists. They were people who liked to hunt, to fish, to vote in favor of candidates that I would generally see as being very dangerous. Well, these days, I recognize that we live in a kind of duopoly, so I think almost any candidate is dangerous. We have an upcoming election in the US in November. When I look at Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they are both dangerous. Both support the extermination of Palestine. I think it can be bluntly stated as such. Would either of them admit to that kind of argument? No, I don't think so. If I said, do you support the extermination of Palestine? Both Trump and Biden, I am almost positive, would say no. And yet that is precisely what they support. That is precisely what Benjamin Netanyahu supports as well, the extermination of the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip. And I don't think that there should be any reason to make any qualifications about that. And so why would a commie want to associate with people who are supporting the extermination of Palestinians, who are Zionists, people who are proud of America, who love America, who love the empire? Well, I doubt they would call it the empire, but they love it nonetheless. They are proud to be Americans. Those are the kinds of people that I met when I was living in the Deep South. Now, where I am now is commonly called Deep South Texas, which includes the Rio Grande Valley. And Deep South Texas, although it has the term Deep South in it, is nothing like the Deep South itself. It is primarily Mexican American. It has none of the basic characteristics that the Deep South does in the Deep South, like in Georgia, in Arkansas, in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Tennessee, and so forth. There are none of those characteristics. Here, in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. In fact, people here are barely even Texan, in my view. Most people have either a Mexican-American accent or a Midwestern accent, because this area has been so cut off from the rest of the state of Texas that it has basically not been influenced that much by the overall culture of Texas. This area is also predominantly Democrat, not predominantly Republican. Generally, when you travel around the rest of the state of Texas, the only Democratic areas you will find are cities like El Paso, like Dallas-Fort Worth, like Houston, and so forth. But here, this is a Democratic dominion, in effect, of Texas. It is not a Republican area at all. And so, again, my view of gun control is, yes, I support gun control for MAGA. I support gun control for people who are not revolutionaries. When I look at the fact that the United States has the highest rate of violence of any industrialized country in the world, of any first world country, and I ask why, and I realize it goes back to the Constitution, the right to bear arms, which has been nothing but a tragedy. Plus, it is a misreading of the intent of the right to bear arms, as most scholars will agree. Namely, the right to bear arms was intended for militias. So if a sheriff wanted to establish a local militia, that sheriff could do that, and then the people in the militia would get to bear arms. It was not a permission slip for anybody in the US to have a weapon. That simply was not conceived of as a part of the right to bear arms. Not at all. And yet, that has become so ingrained into American culture to the point where even the Supreme Court has supported that misinterpretation, which was never stated in the Constitution or its amendments. Simply not a part of it. And yet, when you look at what the Supreme Court and other courts have said, you would think it is entirely different. There is no constitutional support for the right to bear arms by anyone. The reason why the founding fathers wanted the right to bear arms by militias was because they opposed a standing army. They had nothing against a navy, but they opposed a standing army. But now we have a standing army, much, I'm sure, to the disgust of the founding fathers if they were still here. And so with that standing army, there is no need for the right to bear arms based on that definition, based on the right to bear arms in the Constitution. It is simply obsolete. It's gone by the wayside, and yet people cling to it. And the NRA is the major advocate in this country for perpetuating this continual spree of killings throughout the United States. And there appears to be nothing that anyone can do to stop it. Nothing. They happen over and over again, entirely based on a misinterpretation of the Constitution, going against what the founding fathers actually wrote. It is so sad. And yet here in the US, we are faced with the largest number of mass murders, the largest number of serial killings in the world. Most countries don't even know what a mass murder is where a serial killing is, or if they do, maybe it's 1 a year or 2 a year. Here it's maybe 3, 4 a week. It's a real tragedy. And nothing, it seems, can be done about it. Because whenever an objection is raised to it, there are many people in Congress, whether in the Senate or the House, who will voice their opposition to it. Even many Democrats will voice their opposition to it. There is no consensus on this issue on eliminating the right to bear arms, which is simply an antiquated idea. We don't need that yet. Now, I would say that as a revolutionary, if I wanted to bear arms, I should be able to. Now, I don't particularly want to bear arms, but I don't see a need to, since there is no active revolution happening right here in the Rio Grande Valley. But if I wanted to, sure, I think I should be able to have one. I think that other Maoist third worldists should be able to have one. Other communists who are not Maoist third worldists should also be able to have one, or more than one. But people who are not communists, no. There is no reason for it. When there is a revolution, which I expect to begin in the third world and in the fourth world, that revolution will likely begin there and not here in the first world. And so there is simply no need for them here yet. So I don't understand why so many communists, like that guy I met in that forum, would actually agree with the position taken by the National Rifle Association and would be a member of the National Rifle Association, where there is no support at all for the positions taken by the NRA in the writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. For the time being, this has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.